Surfer Ray here in NorCal Bees, and today I want to talk about swarm traps. So it's late winter, it's February 16th, and we've had these amazing springtime conditions. It's like almost 65 degrees right now, and we've had this for weeks, and so we're already getting some swarms. And so now it's time to put out our bait hives. So what I personally like to use is an 8-frame deep. I find that a 5-frame nuke is too small, a 10-frame deep is too big to handle. Since I set out about 40 or 60 of these, you know, I can't be trying to handle this kind of thing. Now, if you're gonna just set it up in your own backyard, you can just set up your regular hive and set it up like I'm gonna show you, and then you know, you can definitely get a swarm to move into a regular hive if you set it up properly. And then you can just have it right there. You don't have to move it, you put it where you want it, and boom, you got a hive ready to go. But for me, because I set these out all over, I really like the 8-frame. I was very lucky to find I bought a whole truckload of these old ones, and I just converted them all to swarm traps. So a couple things that are your key, you know, to success. And the first one is you need some dark brood comb. This one has a little bit of pollen in it. Ideally, you don't want anything with pollen because pollen will mold on you. So you want a nice, clean, dry brood comb. I prefer to put 2 in an 8-frame. So that's the first thing that's very important. I'll put that right in the middle, right where the bees will first come in. The other thing is you need some kind of scent of a queen. So a lot of people use lemongrass oil. It's very easy to get, Whole Foods or any of those type of places, any health food store, you can order it online. You can save all your old queens, and you can put them in some rubbing alcohol and just let them sit, and you can use that. Or you could use something called Swarm Commander. Those are the 3 main things that we use to scent the hives. And you can buy that stuff online. I've used them all. They all work. I don't really think one works better than the other, but I do think it's important to have that in there. So those are the 2 most important things that you need to set up. I like to throw in a feeder. So I put that in right with the trap. I don't put anything in it because I don't want to attract ants or anything else like that. So that's, and then the other thing I found out is that, you know, the ideal size is about 60 liters, and putting this in there kind of makes this more the ideal size you want for trying to attract the swarm. So that's the other thing. And then when I get a swarm, I can throw in a gallon of pro feed in there, throw on a pollen patty, and you know, because I'm going to move them from where they're at, and that just gives them a kickstart so they just take off right away and are able to really go. So the other thing that I like to take advantage of is that the bees come ready to draw comb. Okay, so I like to put in some empty frames of foundation or a starter strip, you know, whatever you want, but definitely take advantage of that, because when they're out there looking, they're looking for a dead out, but usually they're not going to find it. So they come prepared to draw out lots of wax. So I want to take advantage of that, because wax is a very you know, I call it my gold, right? Because you can't really do much without wax. So I have to take advantage of that. So I like to put in a couple frames of either foundation or plastic foundation, and I basically just throw in whatever I got lying around. It doesn't really matter. The bees aren't picky. I kind of use this as my scrap box, you know, because the bees will draw it all out, and then when I move them into a hive, you know, in the end of the season, I'll probably dump, you know, some of the older crap. So I throw it, like I said, whatever I got in there. What is important is you don't want to stick 2 foundations next to each other or a starter strip with a foundation, because otherwise the bees are going to go do some cross combing, and then you'll have a big mess. So I'll put the foundation in there, then I'll throw another frame that's drawn out in there. I got this one right here. We'll throw that in next to that. Okay, maybe one more plastic foundation on the outside. And then we'll fill it out with, you know, I even use stuff like this right here. So this is from a cutout. It didn't make it. And so I'll just throw that in there. It's just filler. It all works. The other thing I do is I like to get some wedges. You know, I make them extra big and I just cut them to fit. I like to wedge that in there. You know, I'll take my little skill saw, cut that off, and wedge another one there. And that way when I'm transporting them, it's not banging around and shaking. So that's the other thing to do. One of the things I do is I get a makeup pad or a Q-tip. If I'm using this, I'll dip the Q-tip in here. If I'm using like the lemongrass or the Swarm Commander, I will dip some on one of these. I get a Ziploc bag, I fill it full of holes. I actually place it in the back underneath the frames and then just let it hang over and like that. And the reason I do that, because sometimes I don't get back to these for months. So I put a couple drops in the front and I put a couple drops in the back, and then I put my frames in, and that's it. You don't want to over scent these. If you over scent them, what's going to happen a lot of times is the swarm will come to move in, and then they'll all just hang out on the outside and they won't go in because the scent is too overpowering. So 1 to 2 drops in the front, 1 to 2 drops in the back, and that's it, you know. And then you just got to set them up, okay? Some people say, oh, they got to be 6 feet up in a tree. What I found is, and I do cutouts for a living, is that it doesn't matter where you put these, okay? You can put it on the ground, like, you know, I wouldn't put it directly on the ground, but you can put it on a hive stand or a stump or on a retaining wall or whatever. You can hang them in a tree. You can see this one's set up to hang on a branch or screw it into a fence. I do that a lot in people's backyards. I just get a couple screws and I screw this right to the usually a 4x4 post, hang it about head high, and that's all just for easy and convenience, you know. It's not that critical where it's putting. What's more critical is there bees in the area. So I like to put these where I get jobs. Like people call me to do a removal and then I offer to put one of these up. Or there's areas I know that produce a lot of swarms. So I always put it in there. You could have the best swarm trap in the world, but if there's no bees in the area, you're not gonna get nothing. And you can have a pretty junky swarm trap, but if there's an area that's throwing swarms out all over, you know, most likely they filled all the places in the area, they'll move into your trap. So it's kind of like real estate, location, location, location. So that's basically how I do it. I hope you got something. You can always check us out at norcalbees.com. You can check out my YouTube page, surferray.com. And thanks for watching.